what's important to you, and you do it with passion. And the fact that I have someone as influential as Joyce standing up and saying that I made a difference in her life really makes it all worthwhile. So thank you so much, Joyce. And thank you, each and every one of you in this room, for doing exactly the same thing with the people whose lives you touch. And you never know what act of kindness, what kind word, what helping hand is really going to make a difference in somebody's life, turn their day around, possibly turn their life around. And that's what we do as Lions. Joyce mentioned that my day job is important. It's just as important as the work that you do. I am a judge, a criminal court judge in Nassau County down in New York. And people ask, well, you must deal with bad people all the time. And I say, well, I deal with bad people often, but I deal with broken people most of the time. And that's something that being a Lion has really helped give me perspective, is you find people at all sorts of stages in their life and in their life's journey, and you find people make mistakes and missteps all along the way. And it's important to have perspective in determining an outcome when it's your responsibility to do so. And I think that being a Lion has helped inform my job as a judge. And I will give you an example. As a judge, I get a docket every day, between 50 and 70 cases, criminal defendants, and I don't always look at the names on the roster. So every now and then, we have celebrity doppelgangers. So they'll hear the clerk call out, people versus Josh Allen, or people versus Tom Brady, and the court officers get excited to see whether or not the true celebrity will be walking forward, and they always get a chuckle when they see that it's somebody other than the celebrity. We have Elizabeth Taylor in our forum all the time. She's a regular. And a couple of presidents are there all the time. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Gene Wilder. Recently,
Gene Wilder.
People versus Melvin Jones. I was like, Melvin Jones! Nobody else. And then Melvin Jones, elderly black gentleman in a wheelchair, who was shoplifting at Walmart in a Santa costume. Long list of priors, all petty larceny stuff, nothing violent, nothing serious. But you have an idealistic young prosecutor who's like, Judge, look at this, the sheet. This person's been doing this for a long time. We need to put this person in jail. And you look at the person and think, you have to have some perspective. Usually, these young prosecutors come from a privileged background. We're able to go through school without having to struggle financially, and now are at a point in their life where they're making these important decisions. And I scratch my head and I think, well, where's your perspective? About how other people live their lives and have gotten to this point. And I think being a Lion has given me that perspective. So in Melvin Jones' case, I channeled my inner Melvin Jones, despite the fact that the prosecutor wanted me to give this defendant jail time. I thought, what would Melvin Jones, the real Melvin Jones, do? So I gave him 100 hours of community service. I thought that was appropriate. At a men's shelter where I'm sure he got as much help as he was able to get. But you have to have perspective in life, and Lion certainly provides that perspective for a lot of us. The role of a district, an international director is to come to a district and provide some words of inspiration. And I don't know that I'm in a position to do that any more than you've already done today. The inspiration that you provided in telling your stories and describing the work that you've done in funding vital research and providing valuable services to your community, whether it be an environmental project. I've heard a lot about recycling that your districts do, many of the folks do. I've heard about, just think of the donations that were given today. Diamond Foundation, for Youth Band, and various research foundations that exist in this multiple in this district. You're changing lives. You're doing the inspirational work. So I can't imagine that I can get up here and say anything that would provide more inspiration than keep doing what you're doing. The one thing I do want to encourage you to do is to look at the emblem, the lion's emblem in the center of your table. You know, we all hear the story about what that stands for. There's one lion that looks back on our proud past, and another lion that looks toward our bright future. And that's true. And you know, the L in the middle stands for our Lions family and what we've done. What I am encouraging you to do is to go back to your clubs. And if you are a district leader and you have oversight responsibility over other clubs, encourage them to do the same thing. Clubs that need to hear this message aren't necessarily here. So it's important that you get the message back to them. Look at that emblem. And we know that L stands for Lions. But I encourage them to look at that L and consider the word legacy. What is their legacy? Many of these clubs have been around for decades. And if I had time, I would have gone through the list of the 21 clubs in this district and added up the cumulative years of service. And I'm sure it would have been thousands. And then you multiply that by the number of years of service that each lion in that club has provided. And you're talking hundreds of thousands of service hours. And how many people have those lions touched through their acts of service and their acts of kindness? You're talking about millions of hours, of millions of lives that have been touched by the service hours provided by those lions. That's a legacy. That is a legacy worth preserving. I challenge you to ask club members in struggling clubs, is this a legacy that you think is worth preserving? If they say, no, you know what, I think that the service we provided is sufficient and we can call it a day, well, then I don't necessarily know that they're thinking about this with the Lions' heart. I encourage you as leaders to think of that legacy in those communities. And ask yourselves, will these communities be better without a Lions Club? We all know the answer is no. The needs in our communities are only growing, they're not diminishing. And the world's population has doubled in 50 years and is likely to double again long before the next 50 pass. And the problems that come along with that haven't diminished either. The demands on our natural resources, on issues of food insecurity, on the environment. We know that those needs exist and are going to continue to exist and probably be exacerbated over the years. Our communities need us. They need strong clubs in their midst to address the needs that arise. It's important that our clubs remain there and remain strong and remain dedicated to this task of serving unmet needs. It's so important that the clubs remain strong. And if you're a district leader, and I know for the most part we have district leaders in here, more so than club leaders. If you're a club leader, please go back and challenge your club to grow, remain strong, remain viable. If you're a district leader, figure out how to make that happen at the club. We had some great sessions today. One of them was moderated by Vice District Governor Tom on bringing in new members. And we had some great ideas. The answers to the problems exist if we put our heads together and figure it out. And sometimes it's about cracking an egg in order to make an omelet. Sometimes you can't walk on eggshells around clubs that don't want to grow or want to just ride out their legacy and see it disappear. We can't afford to do that as an association because the needs aren't going to disappear, even if the clubs do. We have an obligation to make sure that those communities are served by strong, viable clubs. And what I'm challenging you to do as Lions and as leaders is to figure out how to address those clubs that haven't accepted the challenge of fulfilling their legacy and seeing it through. That's what we need to do. And I know that the leaders in this district stand ready to do that. District Governor Jeff, Vice District Governor Tom spoke to that today. Council Chair Dennis is a great cheerleader in that regard. I heard him say, you want to do a website? Let me know, we'll make it happen. The clubs need to be better at promoting themselves and the work that they do in their communities. We shouldn't be a secret to anybody in the community, but if we are, shame on us. We need to get the word out. We change lives by being there when people need us. But you know what? We're not good about going back to them when we need them. People feel valued when you ask them to help. We need to be better at asking for help. We want to grow our clubs. We're there when people need us. There's nothing wrong with turning around after the fact and saying, you know what? But you have something to offer as well. And I'm going to validate you and your value as a citizen by saying, come join us in helping us to do this for others in need. We don't do enough of that. How many of us, we have all sorts of youth programs. We sponsor scouting troops. We sponsor all the eye screenings in the schools. Whenever I'm sure that there are consent forms that go out to the parents before these screenings take place. Well, is there a business card attached to those consent forms that say, for more information about joining your local Lions Club, call this number or visit this site? And you have to kind of keep up with the times. We spoke about the elevator speech today. If you're like me, you get tongue-tied in the elevator. Suddenly somebody says, what are the Lions doing? You're like, well, we are the Knights of the Blind, and we do this. Send them to the source. Send them to your website or your Facebook page or to the international website. Get a business card. You can have these printed at Vistaprint. My club does this. We have a great website. Exactly. How much do 500 cards cost?
$12.99 plus shipping.
Let the QR code do the talking for you. Let the website or the Facebook page or the video on the Lions website do the talking for you. You can connect it to there are great videos on there about the environment. You want it to appeal to a younger population? You know that environmental causes are near and dear to their heart. That's what motivates people under 30. You want to motivate somebody under 30, speak to them about the environment. Connect them to a video on the international website about what we're doing to save our planet. That's going to speak to them. And if you don't remember to say that on the elevator, put it on the QR code and let this speak to them. You know what? If you're like me, how many people get flyers and they disappear by the end of the day, right? You throw them away, you put them in the bag, whatever the case may be. How many people throw out business cards? Nobody throws out a business card. You put it in your wallet and it sits there for 6 months until you clean out your wallet. And then it sits on your desk for another 3 or 4 weeks. But you know what? If you have a QR code, somebody's going to point that camera at it and see where it leads them. So let modern technology help you to recruit members. We need to be better about reaching out to those who we've helped. Reaching out to those that want to give back to their communities and say, you're welcome here. There's a place here at this table for you and your service. We need to be more welcoming. And the clubs that aren't growing need to assess whether or not they're being welcoming enough to those in the community. We have a New Voices program that's supposed to take in new voices, people with different perspectives, maybe different backgrounds, different experiences. Welcome them to the table because it makes our organization stronger. We need to be better at that. And I know that as leaders of this organization, you'll take that to heart and help those clubs that need that assistance realize the importance of that message. And I stand ready to help you in that regard. The needs aren't diminishing. We have to make sure that our clubs remain strong and viable so that we can answer the demands of a new generation. Thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate it, and I stand ready to help you.